Good morning. So as you can see from the proper title slide, this is all about delivering growth for you guys, for SMEs. This is a combined Ealing and Hillingdon event. And as I'm sure you all know, the title of the session today is Pitching for Success, how to help you win contracts. And it's especially if you've been through the tender process and you've been put on the shortlist, but also if you meet somebody cold, as you will tomorrow, some thoughts about how we might make that go better. So there's a bit there about me. To be honest, I don't think it's particularly relevant. It says I've been around, done a few bits, and I would certainly agree with that. But if you want to read it, you can. Yeah, I don't think there's too much to say on that one. Actually, what one point to bring out of there, if you look at the second bullet from the bottom, you'll see that I've had experience selling into the supply chain, and one of those supermarkets there will actually be my case study today. If we look at today's program, the program of which today is a part, the whole program is meant to equip you as well as possible with all the things you need in order to win more business. So clearly it's based around tenders, but there's a lot more to it than that. So what you will have done to have got this far is engage with the program. You will have filled in a questionnaire. And so you will have started looking at the bidding skills, things you need to put into the tender if you've seen the webinars. And if not, I'll give you a link a bit later on that shows you how you can look back at webinars that have been broadcast in the past. That funny little square on the purple part of the ribbon is something called the business model canvas. And although the name doesn't matter too much, it is a very, very important, and in my book, a massively useful tool. And today we'll be looking at a piece of it to see how we can use it. What we've also been talking to you is about sales enablement. And I think that's an interesting expression, because although we are here to enable sales, what we are really here to do is enable people to purchase from you. Because it's an old saying, but I've seen it written down, and it says, remember, you never sell anything. Somebody chooses to buy from you. And we'll be thinking about that as well during today's webinar. Tomorrow, we've got a Meet the Buyer session. So for those of you who don't know, there'll be a slide again towards the end. It's at the Leonardo Hotel. I need to check to see whether we're full up or not. But for those of you that are coming, I'll extend a warm welcome to you, and I'll see you tomorrow. But you'll be able to actually meet some of these big buyers who I think should be your target audience. So go win it with all the tools that we want to give you. So looking at a pitch, and a successful one at that, ask the question, what is a pitch? And I think it's a sales opportunity. It's a conversation. It might be spoken, it might be written, and it's still a conversation. It's you communicating with somebody. And if we look at all the different ways of doing it, you can have flyers, you can have printed leaflets, you might have a postcard in a shop or whatever. And it's a one-to-many device. You don't know who sees it necessarily, but you hope that people do, and you hope there's a good what's called call to action. It's well written, and people would like it and say, oh, that's interesting. So it's also easy for the recipient to keep. So very useful at trade shows. If you've ever been to a trade show, you might come back at the end of the day and think, oh, who did I see? Who did I talk to? If someone gives you a flyer, something with their name on it, something memorable on it, you might even write on it and say, need to contact these people later when you are the buyer. Social media, an interesting and relatively modern phenomenon. I would suggest that it's often not used correctly, because when I do one-to-ones with people, I ask, do you do social media? Yes. Then I ask the rude question, how successful is it? How much business can you attribute to being on social media? And very often people are, so what most marketing folk will tell you is social media is very good as a reinforcement. People can understand the way you think, but it doesn't normally get people to say, oh, I want to buy from you. So I think of that as a very, very good reinforcing message. And maybe if people follow you, they will meet you, they'll start to get to know you through social media, and they'll feel much more comfortable in going to the next step. So webinar is generally very focused. It can go to as many people as the webinar organizers let in. Usually you've got an audience that's on side. They've chosen to be there. They've chosen to give up their valuable time for you, or in this case, for me. So thank you for that. And you know, the potential downside is a good webinar takes a lot of organizing. There's a presentation to be written for that audience. And it has to be focused, because the audience have to be able to take something away. They should be pleased they came on that webinar. And so obviously today, this is one, so fit to bid, it's part of the program. And then lastly, if we look at face-to-face, this is one-to-one. It can be done on a screen, on Teams or whatever. It can be you're invited in because you've won the tender, you're on the shortlist, and you've got a chance to actually meet somebody. And again, there's another old saying, a bad pitch, you're gone. But the saying is, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So when you're seeing these people face to face, have a think about it. Have a think about all sorts of things. Because if we look at who are you pitching to? And tomorrow, if you come to our Meet the Buyer session, you will find people there from local authority and anchor institutions and construction and infrastructure. And I can even name the organisations that are going to be there. But the one thing, if you only take one thing away from today, what I want you to think about is you are pitching to a person. When you meet the buyer, that's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to be sat across the table from somebody who has the power to say, oh, that was dull, cross you off their list. Or they can do the exact opposite and say, wow, that was interesting. I'm going to have a longer chat with this person after the Meet the Buyer. So, back to first principles. For everything I do, I ask the question to myself, what's the point? And if you're asking yourself, what's the point of the pitch? You need to ask the next question. Who is it? Who am I actually pitching to? And why? Because in my book, you should give somebody a reward for giving you their time. They've stopped what they're doing. They are going to listen to you, and they are going to be very focused on what you say. So make it good. And generally, what you want to do is you want to leave them with a warm handshake, or however you say goodbye, and you want them to say, yes, let's, whatever the next stage is, sign up the order. Who knows what the next step will be? Do you actually want to close them and get an order from them at that particular pitch? Do you want to have a second, longer appointment, which is probably what you'll want from the pitch that you give tomorrow for those of you that are coming to the Meet the Buyer event? Is it that you are so proud of your technology and you want your tech expert, which can also be you, by the way, you can know your product in detail, Do you want to talk to them and explain to them how brilliant your product is? Talk detail about the why it's so fantastic. Because again, a good pitch is well structured and it is personal because people buy from people. And you might think your tender goes into the council or the big organization, but it will land on somebody's lap. Somebody will open it. And when that tender goes in, they will look at your tender response and they'll say no, or they'll go on the maybe. So if you're on the maybe pile, they look at your tender again. And if they want to invite you in, they want to hear more. And they want to hear why is the stuff you do relevant to them? And the answer is talk to them. Think about an engaging conversation you have with anybody. Think about the last time you bought something that wasn't online, that had another person working with you. Did they say the right thing? Did they seem to anticipate what you might want? Did they, perhaps you're in a clothes shop, and did they say, oh yeah, can I help? What are you looking for? You tell them, and they walk you across the store to something that you're going to like. Because the best pitch will be well researched. Because the better you know the person that you are talking to, the more easily you can tell them things they want to know. They will have a mental tick box. They will expect things from you. And if you can show that you have given your time and interest to learning about them and what they need or want, they'll be very receptive. Again, think about the last time you walked through a shopping mall. Perhaps there's I don't know, a phone accessories booth, and there's a person in there. They look bored, they look disinterested, they're probably on their phone, but you don't stop and talk to them, do you? Because they're not interested in you. They don't care. So, and I bet they don't get many sales. Because at the end of the day, what we want them to do is to start building trust in you and what you say. Because if they don't trust you, they certainly won't buy from you. And the last thing is rehearse it. Rehearse it, even if it's only to yourself. Rehearse it, make sure you can deliver it well. Think about the questions you might be asked. Think about, what does the person do for their job? Why would they be interested in us? Don't tell them how fantastic your product is. Tell them how beautifully your product will help them. Make their job easier, make their job quicker, make their company function better. Perhaps you help them with automation. Perhaps you can offer them a done-for-you service. What is it that will make their life easier? And make sure you've rehearsed it, and make sure you've thought of all the questions they could ask you. So now you can get your pen and pencils out, or paper, or whatever it is you write on, get a keyboard. But what I'm going to ask you to do right now in this presentation is write down what your business's core service or product is. And forgive me if you're an accountant, but don't write down, I'm an accountant, because that's your job title. What I want you to write down is your business's core service. So if you were an accountant, or you are an accountant, I'd like you to write something down like, I help people avoid going to prison by offering compliant tax services. Over to you. So write down what it is that you do and try and think of a headline, a single sentence. How can you turn what you do into an exciting headline, a headline that people want to know more about. You've left them hanging with your headline. And also, who is your ideal customer? If I said to you, write down customer name, you can, or a customer profile, you might say big supermarkets, you might say construction sites, you might say Hillingdon Council, but try and be as tight as you can. Because in the council, you might say the housing department, you might say mental health, you might say nursing care, care in the community. Whatever it is, think about who is it? Who is your ideal customer? And if anyone fancies putting it in the chat, oh, great, you're already doing it. You're ahead of me. Okay. Operational savings. Okay, that's good. Okay. Again, I like what I've seen in the chat, but what I'd say is you haven't quite excited me yet. We'll go through that. We'll see what's going to happen. So I've said what we need to do is research your target. Who is it? What do they think about? What worries them? If there's a tender document, what have they asked for? And what other value could you give them? What do they get paid for? And think about, there might be the person you're speaking to, or it might be the person you've sent the tender back to. So they might get paid for reading your tender response. So let's pep it up a bit. What do they know about whatever it is the tender was written about? And for most procurement people, the answer is probably absolutely nothing. They've been instructed, send out a tender document, so they've done it. And then a little while later, they'll come back. So make sure you can explain to a layperson what the benefits are of what you do. And if we take a look at the council, so there's the procurement person. He or she gets the tender response back and they get excited or not, but you get onto the maybe pile. Who asked them to send that tender out? Was it the head of nursing care? What do they worry about? Is there somebody higher than that? Council leader? What do they care about? They want to get voted in next time. So how can you do your bit to make them think, oh, yeah, that's good? And also, if most organizations now comply to some sort of ESG type idea, so we are seeing more and more people expressing the values of their organization on their website. And like Heathrow, who will also be there tomorrow, fantastic example. They will tell you how hard they are working to drive down the carbon footprint of an airport. And when I first saw that, I just thought, wow, how on earth, where do you start? They've broken it down piece by piece. They've said, we want to be a carbon neutral airport. I can't remember the date, might be 2050, might be earlier. And you can see they're on it. So anyone who talks to Heathrow, if you can say, we will help you in your drive to zero carbon, we will help you in your drive to fantastic customer experience. So Heathrow, brilliant example of how you can find out in advance what are their values, what do they strive for. Because if you can go to them and say tomorrow and say, hello, we've noticed that, and we think we can help you because if what we can do this and this and this, you can help things run more smoothly, you can help speed up this, you can help do that, you can help do that. If you are responding to a need that they know they have, that's good. And if you can see a need that they haven't yet published, talk to them about it. And what is it that would make a big difference. Because if you can get them like that, and for those of you that have done a one-to-one with me, you'll know that face is called a Charlie squeak. Big, wide open eyes, eyebrows up, and there may or may not be something to smile about. Because at the end of the day, if your offering will help them to sleep at night, perhaps work less hours, so get home earlier to their family, or even keep their job, or get promoted. If you can help them with what they care about personally, you are giving them a fantastic pitch. So the value proposition, again, for those of you going through the program and who've had your first one-to-one, you'll realize that yes, price will always be important, but let's talk about a whole lot of other things. And that's the whole of the business model canvas. And on the top right is the piece about desirability. And on the top right of that is this thing called a value proposition. And at its core, the value proposition describes what you do. Think back. Before you have the conversation, assume the person knows nothing about you. If you're not sure, or if you think they might have done their research, ask them what they know about you. But all the good things you do, especially things that you take for granted, talk to them about. We turn up on time. We are smart. We are tidy. Whatever it is you do to do what you do, tell them about it. If you have qualifications, even if they're mandatory qualifications for your area, tell them you've got it. Like for Heathrow, there is a bar that you have to get over that says we are at the right level for Heathrow. So if you've done your research, you could either ask the question, oh, I noticed that you have entry requirements. Please, can you tell me about them? Or if you know what they are, you can say, and we are working towards those. Or even better, you can say, and we are compliant with. Can we go through your certification process, I beg your pardon, so that we can be one of your suppliers. But everything you do needs to be in your value proposition. But a value proposition is just a list of good things. Then when you know who you're going to give it to, you need to make it in the language of this one person, this one buyer. Talk to them. Tell them how fantastic you can be for them. And if it's a big deal for you, a deal that you would love, oh, you would so love to win it, put some effort in. Because as we said earlier, you only get one chance. Tomorrow, if you're going to be at the Meet the Buyer sessions, you only get 10 minutes. So make sure you know what you're going to say, give them time to respond, and then you respond to the questions that you think you're going to get asked. So, second exercise. List a reason, write down a reason. Why would or should a client choose you? And again, don't say, because I'm a good accountant, and I do apologise to any accountants in the room. But no, tell them what you've done. If you've got a good recent testimonial or success story that amplifies what you do. Oh yes, we do this as we did for, because if we hadn't gone through their accounts thoroughly, they were in danger of being in breach of the reporting procedures at customer's house, which could have had them struck off as director. But because we were on it, we resolved all that. They can rest happy in their beds, and they're really pleased they came to us. So think about why. What's good? And as part of this response, think about what can you put your finger on that says, we are good at looking after our customers? Because everybody wants to say, oh yes, we have great customer service. Well, I can't imagine a business that is in business today that doesn't strive to look after their customers really well. So that's, at best, that's a me too. Give an example of it. And also have a think about how you maintain an ongoing relationship with clients. Because again, those of you that have been through a one-to-one, you will have certainly heard me talk about when you've won the tender, wait for a short amount of time and actually contact the person, the tenderer, the person who received your document, sorry, the recipient within the council that you sent the tender back, and just ring them up and say, oh yeah, it's Charlie. You were kind enough to award the tender to us. I just thought I'd give you a call and see if you know how it's going. Because that will thoroughly confuse them. What? They're not used to people doing that. And it is the start of your relationship with the person that will be giving out the next tender for the very same thing you want to win business on. If you ring them up and you ask them, how's it going? The chances are they'll say, I don't know, actually. So I suppose it must be good. So that's one answer, which you would say, great, thank you. Well, I'll ring back in another couple of weeks just to make sure everything's still going okay, if that's all right with you. And they will almost guaranteed say, yes, of course, that would be fine. So you've now given yourself a reason and an opportunity and a legitimate thing so that that person will be expecting your call in the fortnight. So you will start to build a relationship. And the other important thing is if the person who gave you the tender, although he's not the person responsible for the building, he's not the person responsible for nursing care in Hillingdon, but he is very likely to hear if something's not quite as it should be. Nursing care. How is it? Oh, well, Mrs. Goggins, you missed her out yesterday, didn't you? No. What? Can I ask why you think that might have happened? Well, yeah, she rang up and complained. She said nobody had been around. Ah. Well, I think that's part of Mrs. Goggins' condition. I think she is quite forgetful, but I can assure you we were there at 10 o'clock, bang on time. We did turn up in our uniform. We did do everything on her care sheet, and we left at 22 minutes past 10, whatever the facts of the matter are. Would you like me to send you a copy of the timesheet? Would you like us to take a photograph of the clock in her front room every time we visit? Oh, because what's happened in that conversation that initially sounded like it was going to be a bad one was you corrected a mistake. The person giving out the tenders thought you're not very good because you missed out an appointment. And the fact of the matter was you didn't. And also, these procurement people, they are so busy. I would put money on the fact they will not ring you up and say, you missed something. But it'll be up here. And if you don't have a relationship with them, because you've never ever phoned them up before, when the next tender comes out you want to win, they'll say, no, I won't give it to that Charlie bloke. He missed out an appointment, didn't he, on back in March, June, July, I can't remember, but I know they missed an appointment. So you don't even get the next tender. So build a relationship with the person who gives a tender out, as well as the person you are working with, the builder, the care people. Make sure you have both relationships. So how do we do it? Make it easy. Make it logical for the person that you're talking to. Start with a big splash and wait and see if it has the effect you're expecting it to. And in a minute, we're going to go into a case study and you'll see how I once did this. And that big headline, it should be 100% factually true, but also if there's an element of tease in there so that you think, well, the person hearing you says, what? And in their mind, they're saying, that's interesting. How do you do that? You've got them engaged. They are now all ears and they are waiting for what you're going to say. So having given them that teaser headline, go back to them and say, well, I said that, and this is why I said it, and I'll go through an example in a moment. And again, wait for their response. Give them time. This is all new information from them. So give them a chance to let it soak in. Yeah, don't wait too long, but wait for their response. Anticipate, think, well, if I said that, then I said that, what are they going to ask me? Have you done it before? Are you sure you can do it? Show me your numbers. Whatever it might be, have you got examples? Have you done this before? Think about what they might ask for and just respond. And for everything you say, build trust, give reassurance. Because in their mind, they're thinking, oh, I quite like this. This sounds really interesting, but can I trust them? Are they financially sound? Have they done this sort of stuff before? So when you're there, remember what your objective was. Is it just to get another meeting so that it's not so rushed, it's not so compressed? And the other thing is, to be honest, they probably know who you are. They probably know your company name because they've agreed to see you. So don't splash it all about. They're not actually interested in that until they've decided they want to do business with you. So have it there in the background. Yeah? You know, on these slides, there's Branduin logo, sits top right. I haven't mentioned Branduin once. So when you're delivering it, make it enjoyable, exciting if you can. Make them smile. And that means you need to be confident. You need to be upbeat. Because if they sense you are not confident, really, you don't sound very sure about this, and you want me to buy it from you? Okay, well, carry on. So be confident. You've done your research. You know you can do it. If you followed the business model canvas, you will have done your feasibility. You will know how much it's going to cost. You will know who your partners are. You will know you can do it. So be up there. Say it. Tell them how it is. Look professional. And for different organizations, that will be different things. But remember, they will look at you, and it's human nature to make a snap decision the first time you see somebody. Do they look hot and bothered and flustered and oh my god, yeah, hang on a minute, or are they calm? Is everything that they need in a single bag? Do they come in? Do they look in command of the situation? Are they ready? Are you at their level? They expect to do people with business like them, with people like them. So we've said before, talk to them about what they want to hear. And again, think about a very simple example. When we buy a drill, it's not what we want. We don't want a drill. What we want is a hole. So think about, what do they want? You may well have the finest drill. It may have a dust extraction system on it. It may be diamond tipped for getting through concrete. But they're not interested in that. They're interested in the hole, or whatever it is you are doing that will benefit them. Remember to separate the two. And try and anticipate if you say something to them, how would they react? So that your confidence continues. And if they do ask you a really awkward question, don't crumple into a heap. Lost it. Think, say, that's a really interesting question. Give me a couple of minutes on that. Yeah, interesting. Give me a couple of minutes and I'll tell you how. I'll come back to you in a minute on that. Or if you know you can't answer it there and then, say, okay, I don't know the answer to that, but I know a man who does. When would you like me to come back to you? Later today? Tomorrow? Do you want me to phone you? Do you want an answer in an email? Don't labor it, but make sure you handle it confidently. And again, respond to what they said, build trust. And of course, everything you say does have to be honest and truthful. Be open, honest, and truthful. That will show through, and they will start to feel reassured. You will have built credibility, and they will trust you. And remember why you're there. Don't overdo it. If you're only there, like at the Meet the Buyer session tomorrow, to get a secondary meeting, a meeting beyond that, stop. Don't say, oh, and by the way, blah, 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 blah. No. You've said that you're there and you want to tell them about this and you'd like to have a meeting with them in the future. That's it. Stop. Do it in measured steps, no matter how excited you are when the fella said, yes, or the lady, yes, let's have another meeting. Stay calm and stay professional and remember to thank them. And then talk about whatever. You could even leave, even if you haven't used your whole 10 minutes. So, and remember to follow up if you promised things. So on my next slide, I'm going to start a case study. I had spent 7 months doing my research. I found out who was spending the money as a job title. Then I found out what his name was. Then I found out where his office was. And then it was, they had like a coffee area where they would meet people that they didn't want to take into a meeting room. I sat in that kind of reception coffee area for about 4 days. And that person that I wanted to see had a name badge. So when he did appear for his cup of coffee, I went up to him and I physically bumped into him. I expressed surprise and said, oh, hello, Jeff. I think I can save you £9 million a year in the coffee queue. And then I waited. It took about 5 or 6 seconds. Sorry, what did you just say to me? Well, I said I think I can save you £9 million a year. To which point he said, let me buy you a coffee. Okay, yeah, thank you. I'm happy to get my own. We sat down. And he said, so tell me, what's this £9 million you think you can save me? Well, I've done some calculations. And obviously, I'm outside your organisation, but based on what I've been able to find out, I think you spend somewhere in the region of £25 million a year on refurbishment of your in-store fridges and freezers. I can do it for 14 million. So within that single sentence, I've told him I've done some calculations. This is the information I've been able to find out as an outsider. And this is what I think. And I know I can do it for 14 million pounds. So, okay, tell me more, he says. Well, I know at the moment that you have to take the old old ones out. And that's a massively complicated engineering process. I understand that you have to disconnect the electricity. I understand that you have to take all that fridge gas out. I understand that it's really difficult. And then you have to break these huge, great fridges. You see long lines of them in the supermarkets. You have to break them into pieces small enough to get them out of the door. And then you have to reverse that procedure. So you've got a new one waiting on a truck that comes in that has to be bolted together. And then you have to connect the gas up and all that stuff. And then you have to connect the electricity up and all that stuff. And you have to bolt it to the floor. And then you turn it on and you hope it works. We don't need to do that. So can I show you my figures? So I showed him my figures, where the £9 million came from. And he gave me an answer I was not expecting, because I thought my research was good. I thought he was going to welcome me because I'm going to save him shed loads of money. But a moment later, he said to me, no, it's nearer £12 million a year that you could save me. So suddenly my heart calms down. And I said, well, that's great. Can I revise my figures and replay them back to you? And when would be a good time for me to come back with my new numbers? So again, wait. Yep, day after tomorrow would be good. Okay then. So you keep the smile bolted to your face and you say, thank you, I'll do that. And I shook his hand warmly and I left. And we did get the contract, and that completely transformed the organization I was working for at the time. They did about another £1 million worth of turnover, and it did save Tesco loads of money. So that's a case study. So what I'd say is use everything we give you. We are trying really hard to make sure you are in the best possible place. So if you are responding to a tender, there are webinars that say, do this, do this, do this, do this. And the webinars are generic because they are about the art of responding to a tender, do's and don'ts. Then we have a number of one-to-ones where you'll have a couple of sessions with me or one of my colleagues where we talk about make it good for you, make it personal for you so that you can extract your goodness. You can use the tools, the business model canvas, and also a thing called the SWOT, so that you can have an action plan. And again, remember, your pitch has to be personal. You think about trade shows. Have you ever gone around a trade show and you stop at a stand and the first thing you see is a huge, great logo with the company name emblazoned at head height? Well, I can see the name of the company. I have no clue what they do. I have no clue whether I'd be interested in what they do. Could they make their life easier? Would I be happy after a conversation with them? Would I even stop at their table to have a chat? Because they haven't done anything to tell me about their possible potential advantages for me as a person. So make it personal. And what I'd like you to do next is to plan your top 3 actions. What are you going to do as a result of today? If you haven't had a one-to-one chat, make sure you're registered in the system. Have a look maybe at a business model canvas if you've seen one before, and start working with one. If not, just make sure you've got the one-to-one and we can help you do the rest. Because this is all about making you able to talk with confidence to somebody and give them the perfect pitch. Because this is the program that's going forward. This is the top line, the sustainable Oh, sorry, that was my last presentation. So I don't know why the top three are in the wrong order. But pitching for success is today. That's this webinar. Meet the buyer at the Leonardo Hotel is what's happening tomorrow from 4 o'clock. And there'll be the other sessions that you can see there. For Ealing, there's another Meet the Buyer in October, and so on. You can read that. And if you go to the very, very bottom in the slightly orange color, we are, and we have been, and we will continue to run the one-to-one sessions. And as the name sounds, these are sessions where you spend an hour twice, so you have two 1-hour sessions, and we go through with you what's troubling you, what would help you, what's the best thing we can do to help you win more business. Because if you can win business through a tender scenario, you can win business anywhere. Because when you respond to a tender, you can't see the person you've sent the tender to. You cannot gauge their reaction. You cannot choose what to say next. You've written it all down. You cannot hear what they're saying. You cannot see their body language. All you have is a pen and paper. Before they opened the document, they probably knew nothing about you. And when they read the document, it should be a variation on today, a successful pitch through your tender response. And they should be excited through your tender response so that you do not go on the no pile. For any of you that have hired people, new hires into the company, you'll probably get CVs there and you'll say, no, 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 maybe, no, maybe. And it's pretty much the same when tender responses come in. The first sift happens quite quickly. So impress. So we'll go through that with you in the one-to-one. And if you're not already in the program, register at that email address, web address at the top, fittobid.co.uk. If you haven't seen or listened to all the webinars or been present at them, we as Branduin have a YouTube channel, so you can go to that and revisit them. And if you've been through it and you'd like a refresher, go back and have another look. If you're in the Hillingdon borough and you want to book a one-to-one session, contact me in the first instance, and it'll either be myself or one of my colleagues that gives you the opportunity for a one-to-one. And if you're in the borough of Ealing Borough, then do the same with Tony. You can see the addresses up there. And the other thing to remember is, although we talk a lot about tenders, when you've been through this program, you will have the ability to effectively reply to a tender that hasn't been issued yet. You actually go to the person, the council, and say, I've been thinking, I think it would be good. How would you feel if someone could offer you Think back to my case study. He did not know he needed somebody like me to do what we did. I went to him, stone cold. I knew his name. I knew, done loads of research. I went to him and basically said, I would like you to be interested enough to give me time of day. So I came up with a headline. That was me with an expression of interest. An expression of interest is you going to somebody else and saying, I think you should be interested in what we have to say. And if you have the great headline, then you supply the credibility that justifies the headline. And so they then talk to you and listen to you and decide if they have the need and the budget as you think they do. Or if you're not going that route, you develop a winning bid. It might be a winning pitch. Pitching for success is what today is all about. So have a pitch that will get you another meeting with the people tomorrow. So I don't know if anybody's got any questions, but that's the end of the very, very formal piece. So any questions that anybody wants to? Okay, there's a question there. How do we book in for one-to-ones? So the one-to-ones happen at a time that would suit you and the person doing the one-to-ones with you. So if you, hang on a sec, let me just rewind a couple of slides. Depending on which borough you're in, sorry. Right, I'm just going to share my screen with you again. Okay, it should be coming up any moment now. So in a moment, you'll see there are two, sorry, I need to hit share. You should see the two email addresses center of the screen there, where it says book a one-to-one advice session. But when you do that, make sure you've done number one first. If you're not on the program, you haven't been to Fit to Bid and done the questionnaire, please do that first. And then you can either email us and say, I've been there and done the questionnaire. But when you fill the questionnaire in, depending on which borough you are in, either Tony or myself will be aware that you filled it in. And we are very likely to get in touch with you and arrange a 1 hour one-to-one session. So I think if that's it, I haven't seen any more questions. So I will say thank you very much, guys. I think I've kept reasonably to time. We're a minute or two over. But I hope you've had a good session and look forward to hearing from you all later. Thank you. Bye.